Hi guys, welcome to this Ableton Live tutorial. In today's lesson we are going to go over the basics of Ableton, where we're going to get everything set up. We're then going to look at building a drum pattern, so that's going to start with loading drum samplers into a sampler. We'll cover the piano roll and different functionalities within that. We'll then look at the drum rack itself, we'll look at MIDI tracks, we'll look at grooves and the groove pool, and we'll then finally look at how we process our drums. So to start off with, my name is Sesenta, Craig Strachan, some of you might know me. I've been producing for the last 5 years now. I've released on a number of different labels, including Ride Music, Little Festival Records, Blank, for any of you know the online platform Blank. The whole purpose of making this is because obviously we're amidst a bit of a crisis right now with the coronavirus, so I decided I'd like to put up some tutorials just so that we're not just sat in twiddling our thumbs, because I know a lot of us are musicians and we've not got any gigs at the moment because everything's all completely cut off. So hopefully with this live tutorial I'll be able to give you a little bit of an insight, and future live tutorials of how you can actually start programming your music, so that when this does eventually pass, we've all got some music going out for the summertime. So I hope we're all safe and well. So let's get started. So initially, when you open up Ableton, unless you've already set a preset for how you want your live to look, this is the main screen. If you wanted to start a new live set, it's just up here. You can also open and save your projects in this menu here. First of all, you'll need sound. So that's in our preferences section here. Now this completely depends on what you're using, whether you're using a sound card or whether you have headphones or speakers plugged into your aux port of your computer or laptop. This is where you set your inputs and outputs. So wherever your sound card or whatever it would be, it'd be under your output configuration. If you are just using headphones or you're just using speakers for your jack, it'd be your built-in output. It's the same for your inputs as well, for what you're recording in. The exact same if you're running it through your sound card, into your sound card, or if you wanted to just record off your laptop or computer, it would be built-in microphone. So to get started, we're gonna have a look at some of the features. So for building up drums, me personally, I like to use, there's a number of different methods. Much like in any software, there's no set method to doing it. It's down to personal preference. I'm going to show you as many different ways as possible, and then I'll go into the way that I design my drums. So in order to load drums into your project, first of all, you need to have a MIDI channel. Okay, so we have some MIDI channels here. I'm just going to delete these for the purposes of this demonstration. So to create a new MIDI channel, you can right click on your scenes here, insert MIDI track, or you can press the shortcut Command Shift and T, and that does the exact same thing. Obviously the shortcut gets you there a lot quicker. So there's two different kinds of views in Ableton. You have your session view, which is what we're looking at here, and you have your arrange view here. This is normally where you would be building your track. Session view is great for building up a series of clips if you wanted to perform live. However, if you wanted to actually arrange and build your track, your arrangement view, hence the name arrangement view. So let's make a new MIDI track here, and let's explore. First of all, we'll explore the sampler. So Ableton has three different kinds of samplers here. We have impulse sampler, the regular sampler here, and also the simpler. So to load a sample into your sampler, first of all, you're going to have to find the directory. So you have a load of samples that Ableton has as stock. This is in your packs here, which if you go into your core library here, that has lots of different packs here, lots of different drum kits, which would automatically load onto a drum rack. You've got all your clips here. You also have, if you look up in the top section here, you have a load of samples in here. If you hear them over, there we go. Some of these, if ADG, that's, I can't actually remember what that stands for, but that's Ableton's own sample there. So it has its own parameters built into it. So if you look here, that'll come up with its own parameters that you can adjust if you were to just load in a normal sample here. So when you double click, Ableton's default is to set up a sampler. the normal sampler that we have here. If we go back into here, so sampler. So there's two ways you can do it. If you wanted to use a different sampler, if you wanted to say use a simpler because it's got simpler functionalities, you can load your sample into the simpler, drag it like this. That's you. Or the other option is if you have it there, you can just double click and it automatically loads up a sampler. Simple as that. Simple as sample. Yeah. So, again, it's entirely up to you which kind of sampler you use. The simpler does use a lot less CPU, so if you find that your computer it's not super strong, I'd probably recommend using the simpler because it has less functionality, so there's less for the CPU to actually focus on. So yes, it just depends. But if you've got a nice powerful computer, just load the sampler. It's got a lot more functionality, which we'll actually go into in a lot more detail as well. So let's get a little kick pattern in here. Oh, sorry, forgot to mention, if you do have your own samples, like you have your own sample library, a way that you can add your sample packs into Ableton. As you can see here, I've got quite a few different folders here. I like to sometimes go back into my old projects and steal some stuff, steal some old samples. So just click add folder here, and then wherever your samples are located, you can just load that folder up, open, and that's it. And then you can click into it. Boom, that's you, job done. So let's grab a kick. Let's get everything started just now. Where are we? Right, let's get some samples. Kicks. Let's go drum hits, kicks. Let's just get a... That'll do. Okay, so to load the sample in, as I said before, you can just simply double click like that and that will automatically load up a sampler, or again, you can just drag one from the sampler or simpler, whichever you want to use. Oops, let's get that back. If you do make a mistake, it is Command Z, no matter what it is. That doesn't matter if you're talking about deleting or adding things. And then same again, Command Shift and Z if you wanted to redo something. It's very useful when it comes to down the line when you're trying to make tracks as quickly as possible. So to create a new MIDI section, again, you've got a couple of options here, which I'll show you. If you are using the session view, you can just double click and that'll create you a 1-bar loop. I personally like to use a ranged view, so I'm going to jump onto a ranged view here. So all you need to do is ensuring that your mouse is on the click mode. If it is on the B mode, the pencil mode, sorry, for drawing and automation, just simply press B, and that puts you back onto the mouse mode where you can hover on top of stuff. So to create your MIDI section, all you need to do is highlight the size that you want, so you can make it as big or as small as you want. Obviously for the kick here, we just want to make it 1 bar, and then I can show you how to extend it afterwards. So to make a MIDI section, Command Shift and M, that creates a new MIDI pattern. Let's zoom out of this. Where are we here? So automatically when you're creating your patterns, you want the sample to land on middle C, so that's C3, just simply because that's what the natural sound of the sample will be. If you wanted to pitch it up or pitch it down, you can do so using the piano roll here. So I probably should have mentioned, this is the piano roll. This is where you draw your MIDI notes in. So if whatever beat you wanted to have here, I'm just going to make a little house groove. So I'm going to just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, like I was saying before, to change from the pencil to the drawing tool, sorry, the letter B. I'm going to post a little shortcut tool after this video's went out, just so it can be a lot easier for you to move around Ableton rather than having to right click and do things. So when you do right click on this, by right clicking, you get to choose the size of the notes that you're going to be placing down. So as you can see here, the grid automatically adapts. So if we're going to make them quarter notes, and again, if you wanted to draw it all the way along, you can just hold your mouse down and that takes you all the way along. Now I personally like to use 16th notes just because it gives me a lot more to play with when it comes to the envelope. I'll show you the envelope in just a little second just now. So when we're drawing the notes in here, another thing to bear in mind is if you look at the actual MIDI note itself, it can change color if you go up and down. Now that's the velocity, which means the power that the note's being hit. So basically, if in order to turn the velocity of the note up and down, you can just simply scroll. and that gets your velocity up and down. Depends how hard you want to do it. Obviously, if you wanted to do like a little softer kicks, or depending what you're using your MIDI notes for, it's always good for getting a little more dynamics. For the purpose of this, I want the kick absolutely slamming, so I'm just going to do all at 127 full velocity. So this here, as you can hear, the kick is a little bit short for my liking, and this is why I made it 16th notes here, is because in the sampler you have the opportunity to play with the envelope. Now, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail with the envelope here, but your basic functionality is attack, which is this, release, decay, which is this. So if I brought this down, that would be how long the decay is. I'll go into this in a future lesson. We'll go into envelopes. Sustain, how long it gets kept for, and release, how long it is released for afterwards. So for the purposes of this, I want my kick to be that little bit, just slightly longer. So if you listen to it here, oops, we'll start to loop that. In fact, I'll go into this here. In order, if I wanted to loop the section or make the section longer, just hover over the top part here, this where little brackets will come up, and you can drag your MIDI section to as long as you want it to be. In order to create a loop, which we're going to do here, you've got a couple of options again. This is your loop tool at the top, so you can either move that around manually, or the other option is, again, going back into your pointer mode, you can just simply highlight an area and press Command L, and that loops that section that you have highlighted. So Command L here. So cool, let's listen to this. So as you can hear, when it's set to 50 milliseconds, it's not really long. It's not really long enough for my liking anyway. I like a little bit of punch in my kick and a little bit of decay. So there we go, that's giving that a little bit extra oomph. Yeah, cool. So let's move on. That's our kick pattern here. Again, if you wanted to change anything within your kick pattern, you can do so using this. Another good function of Ableton is the fact that you can, so we have a 4-bar section here, but that's just repeating the same bar over and over again. If you wanted a little bit of variation, you wanted to change it without having to make individual MIDI sections, what you can do within your MIDI clip that you already have is click duplicate loop. By clicking the button, that basically, as it says, duplicates the loop, and you can make it as long as you want if you want it to go really crazy. I'll zoom back in. If you want to zoom, little tool here, where if you can see the little circle, if you hover up in between the lines, that's your zoom. Nice and easy. No keyboard shortcuts. The same if you're using the top panel here. If you just hover over the top, you see the circle for zooming in, the magnifying glass, and that's you. So this will zoom you in. So zoom into this section here. Cool. So that's us. We've got our pattern up here. In fact, you know what? Let's make a little short note at the end. So one thing I like to do while I'm producing my track is I like to gain stage everything so that nothing's getting too hot a signal, and so that the signal it makes the mix a hell of a lot easier as well. So one thing you can do, you can either bring your fader down here. I like to keep everything to sort of -10, just because it gives me a lot of headroom when it comes to the actual mix. And if it comes to automation and there's certain loud sections, you know, I've got a lot of room to play with. It also makes it easier for when it comes to mastering as well. So here we have let's set down at -10, which I've done using the volume tool here. This is just on your mixer. There's another way you can do it. You could do it, there's various ways you can do it actually. You could do it through, you can do it using your actual sampler itself. That's your volume there, which turns it up and down. You can also use a utility. Utilities has volume, also has stereo and panning on it as well. Okay, oh, that's a bit loud. Because it's a kick, we don't really want any spill coming out the sides, so what we'll do is, this is the width. Now basically with the width is how wide the signal is going. So you can either have it going straight down the middle, or sorry, in stereo, which is what it's at now. You can have it straight down the middle, which is what we want, because we don't want any spill coming out the side, because all kick and bass is going to be coming out the club sound system in mono. So if we did put this out wide, you can't even really hear it because there's not too much presence. Well, let's get it going straight down the centre. Another little tip for getting your kick sounding a little bit beefier, which we're going to do, is sticking a bit of saturation on it. So with the saturator, let's do this here. Let's give it a little bit of drive. Okay, a little bit too much drive. That's giving it a nice bit of kick. And what we'll do is we'll take this, the utility, and we'll play that afterwards, and we'll bring that back down. So there we go. A wee bit more. That'll do. Cool. Another little. I might bring the release down on that actually, because another little tool that I'm going to show you here. I know we're just going on to the basics of the lesson, but is setting up a send to give a bit more of an oomph coming back for the kick. I'll show you a little trick that I learned from a producer called Max Chapman, who's got the tightest sounding kicks, but the most boomy sounding kicks at the same time. So yeah, we've got this here. We'll actually put a little bit of compression on it as well, just to give it a little bit of extra oomph. Okay, the difference with the compressor. Obviously getting the volume gain right. Squashes that little bit of the top and gives it a little bit of a fatter sound. So cool, let's get a send set up. So basically what a send is it's as it pretty much says in the title, you send part of the signal to a send channel, a send, and then the return will return it back. So send and return makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up, let's delete this reverb in here just now, but what this cool little trick here, if we stick a little compressor on the top there and bring the release down, put the ratio up ever so slightly, nice fast attack, slow release, and then what we'll do is we'll bring this, let's put a low shelf filter, high shelf filter, sorry, times 4. I'll bring this down. Okay, we need to turn these off. There we are. So your EQ and your compressors you can access through the audio effects here on the right hand side. Just double click and it adds it onto the chain. So cool, we've got this coming through. So what we're going to do is we're going to start sending some of the signal to the send and return channel with the compressor and the EQ. Now the reason we've got the EQ band set so low is because we only want the bottom frequencies coming through to give it that extra presence, that little bit extra oomph. So if we solo this channel, you can solo this, solo your channels by using the little S button here. When that flashes, when that's blue, that means it's solo. So if you're ever at a stage where, oh, why have I not got any noise coming out? Why is my track not playing? It's probably because something's soloed. So let's have a listen to the signal coming through. Sounds like outside a club. So by adding that here, let's take this off. You know, that gives that just that little bit of extra. Just getting that sweet spot. Cool, that'll do. So now that we've got the kick set up, let's look at bringing in some more, some different percussion, hi-hats, claps, and we'll get some shakers. Just get a basic house groove set up. So there's multiple methods that you can do this. I like to personally just load everything up in different samplers and then just put them all together in one different group. But there is also the option, which I'll show you here, if you load up a drum rack. Again, if you just drag it in, as long as you're not dragging it onto any specific channel, it'll create the MIDI channel for you. So with a drum rack, what you can do is, there's Ableton comes standard with all of the drum machines, so you can load the drum machine up, and basically that has all the notes from the drum machine. Now if you go to create a MIDI clip here, so let's make a 1-bar MIDI clip here, Command Shift and M again. What this does is this has, if you scroll this up here, on your piano roll here, this has everything, all that you would see, all that you would hear, sorry, in a drum sample, in a drum machine, can't speak. So by using the drum rack, it does make things slightly easier to see because you have everything in front of you. You know where your MIDI patterns are. So if we were to draw a little note in here, so we've got our kick. So let's put our hi-hat in. We'll drag this over to 4 bars. So again, velocity, let's get the velocity nice. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to copy any of the sections over, so what you can do, as long as you highlight the right section, press Command E, and that basically copies it over to the next section. In fact, let's move these. Okay, let's get a wee snare in there. You get the idea. That's how you would load your drum samples up there. I personally like to use MIDI and load all my samples individually, but that's just how I've trained myself. Again, it's totally up to you. There's no right and wrong way to do everything. So I'm going to delete this for now. Cool. I'm actually going to put this wide because it's not really coming through in the compressor. Wrong way around, that's why. Cool. So I'm just going to load in a load of samples here. Again, it's literally just by finding whatever the samples are. Let's get some claps in here. That'll do. Cool, claps. Again, I'm just going to rattle through this really quickly. There we are here. Again, going back into my sampler, making it slightly longer. Cool, just putting a wee extra one at the end, just to give a little bit of variation. I'm going to put a second clap in there, a snare, just to give it a little bit more presence. A good tip, if you feel like your track sounding a little bit empty, layer stuff. Just layer things on top of each other. So to stop me from just having to do the whole thing again, all I do is the same as copying on a MIDI section. If you want to copy anything, Command D or Control D, depending on what you're using, Windows or Mac. So let's put this in here. Yeah, it gives just that little bit extra presence. So there we go. Right, to rename, Command R. Okay, we'll call this a kick because it's a kick. Call this a clap because it's a clap. And funny enough, we'll call this a snare because it's a snare. Now you can EQ as you go, which I would highly recommend because it just makes things easier. Or you can do it all as a group. I would say do it individually. You can set up presets within EQ8 as well. So say for example you wanted to save your preset here, you would go to Command S on that. Oh, sorry, Command S on your, not Command S, sorry. Where are we? Save as default preset, there you go. And then you can add it down here. sorry, that by saving it as the default preset, that automatically sets it up as your default EQ basically. So if you had a certain EQ you were using for your drums, it loads it automatically when you load EQ8. There you go. That's you there. I'm sure there's another way of doing it. Of saving your EQ. That's actually the first time I've ever done that. You learn something new every day. That's cool. Nice. Cool. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to this. So let's just, by using that, we're just going to take some of the bottom end off of the snare and the clap, so it's not, listen here, it's not interfering with the, the kick. You want all your bass frequencies, you want just your kick and your bass to be breaking through the bottom part. So I would normally cut, depends what sort of track that you're making, but I would normally keep it above 300. Again, totally depends. Personal preference. Me personally, I like to have it nice and high. Cool. Let's bring the tempo up. Your tempo is just at the top here, top left. To change it, you can press up, down, or you can tap if you really want to, if you've got ninja fingers. I've not, unfortunately. So let's get some shakers in here. Where are my shakers? I think they're... I'm going to use this, but I'm going to use it as a MIDI pattern. So Command Shift and M. So this is my section here. So I'm going to, let's click this here, 16th notes. So you can, if you want to, just make the 16th notes like that, but normally it's like, it depends on the music style that you're going for. I personally prefer to have a little bit of dynamics when it comes to my shakers. So this is when the volume automation and the on the piano roll is quite useful, because you can set the volumes depending on how hard you want, depending on what groove or swing you want to go for your track. So for this here, let's do this. Let's change it a little bit. That sounds quite nice. So what we'll do to, because it is dynamic, it's quite dynamic, but it's not, could be a little bit more, have a little bit more highs and a little bit more lows. Now in the sampler, this is a good thing about the sampler, is you have your volume and velocity here. So if I bring this all the way down to 0%, doesn't make any difference between the volume and the velocity. But then when you change, when your velocity is quite varied, you want to have quite a variation on it. So by bringing the percentage up here, that changes the amount of variation between the peaks, basically. So this one here, that's nice enough. I'll bring the volume down for this. And again, let's EQ this. Oh, that's quite cool. It's automatically made my low shelf here. This is nice. I'm glad I found that today. So let's go, let's make it nice and high. Okay, so we've got this here. That's nice, but we want to give it a little bit of a stereo image, so we can auto pan. Auto pan, as you guessed, pans things automatically. And by doing that, let's switch it off. And with the velocity and the panning, it's already made a massive difference to how the track sounds, because it's giving just dynamics, and it's giving a little, it's letting it breathe, it's giving it a groove. So to give it a groove even more, what we can use is the groove pool. Now the groove pool, you can load your grooves into Ableton. You can do it. You can load grooves from individual tracks, which we'll go into in a future tutorial. But for the purposes of here, let's just type in swing here. We want to give it a little bit of swing. So Ableton's got a couple of different swing features. They've got the same swing that Logic has. Great software, and they also have the same swing, which is ever so slightly different from an MPC, which is a sampler. I've actually never used any of these ones down the bottom here. This is a first for me. So I like to use personally the Logic sampler. Let's go for 57. So if we turn that off, let's make this a little bit. It's giving quite a nice crispness because it's not actually, the swing's not happening. It's not happening directly on the beat, so that's quite nice. But then we also want to, by loading this into the groove pool here, so I've double clicked that, I've dragged it onto the clip here. Also, if you ever wanted to load that groove, because obviously you want to have a consistent groove going through all your MIDI channels, so what you can do is you can load this groove. Now that's automatically on the groove pool now. So if we have a look here, if we go into our snare or our clap and we go into our MIDI section, the groove, it's already there. So we just need to click on there and that's already added the groove when it comes to that backbeat the backbeat clap. Same again. Now I would recommend probably not pressing the commit button, because if you do make any changes to the MIDI pattern, so say for example if I was to click commit, if you look at this, the values on the MIDI notes, they've changed because you've committed the groove and now the groove's gone. So if you were to add that groove again, it would add it again twice, like double, which is obviously going to make the groove completely different. So I would recommend just leave the groove as it is. Just leave it in here because it's still going to do the same job. You don't have to worry about it not performing. It is going to perform if the groove is already loaded into there. So we've got everything. Cool, we've got shakers, we've got our claps, we've got our snares. Cool, let's go on to some hi-hats now. Where are we? Samples, let's find some nice hats, drum hits, come out of claps, closed hats. They're a little bit too closed. Let's go for a tight hat. Okay, let's get a couple of these MIDI notes here. Okay, we'll rename this guy here shaker MIDI. Let's load this guy up here. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I'm sorry. Let's right click MIDI 1 and 2. Nope, that's not right. Cool, let's add some EQ to that again, because it's actually a little bit, it's got too much tone. Let's just go for a 909, nice and easy. You have all these samples here to use, there we go. Cool, again, that's us loaded up here. Again, if you wanted to change the pattern slightly so you've got a little bit of variation, duplicate. Let's change it here. Get a little bit less volume. Now, as you can hear with the shakers, they're starting to react with the hi-hat, they're starting to clash. So one way to remove that problem is to go onto your audio effects, stick a compressor on the top of it. Now, your compressor, what the intention of your compressor here is to sidechain. Now, what sidechaining does is whenever you have a certain thing that you want to overpower. So say for example, you would use a sidechain for a bass on a kick. So you obviously want the kick frequency to come through, you don't want the bass. So you would sidechain the kick from the bass from the kick, sorry, so that whenever the kick hits, the bass gets squashed to give it that pumping sound. The same applies for shakers and hi-hats. So if we take this here, our shaker, now to stop this, now that we've taken the audio from the, sorry, we'll take it from the closed hi-hat, whenever this, so when we bring the threshold down, now the shaker isn't having dominance over those high frequency ranges, because whenever the hi-hat is in, that's when the shaker ducks. Cool, there we go. That's us sorted here. Now let's get some snares in. Let's make it a nice housey groove. In fact, before that, let's bring that frequency right the way up. And the volume while we're at it. Cool, let's get some, in fact, let's get an open hi-hat in there. Let's use a 909 again. Okay. Load the sample in here. Or another thing that you can do if you want it to be really quick, because you know these are going to be hitting the same notes, duplicate that and then you just load your new sample in. So you go 909, poof. Play a bit with the decay. Down ever so slightly. Same with the snares. Let's make the snares a little bit shorter. That's a little bit too long. So by bringing the, as you can see here, the decay, that makes it a little bit shorter. And we can change it here. So I normally shorten my snares if I want to make them that little bit extra tighter. See the clap. Same with the clap. Let's bring that in a bit. Volume needs to change. Let's copy this over so it's the same pattern. Cool, let's get some snares in here. Where are we? Snare, snare, snare. Let's use some of the normal drums in here. That's okay. New MIDI pattern. Same again. Snare. So let's make a nice house pattern. Cool, that's the first snare in here. Let's again, same principle, EQ. Maybe bring it down a little bit. Cool, we'll duplicate this, get the second kick in here. So all the effects are already on there with the EQ. Cool, and we'll just change the MIDI pattern. Okay, look, we want to have this a little bit less frequent. fan of that sound actually. Cool. We're gonna have kind of different sounds. I'm not sure about this sample. Maybe get something a little bit more. It's got a bit more ring to it. Yeah. Let's put some hi-hats in here as well, get some 16th notes. So we can duplicate that a second time. Hi-hat. Fast hat. Some more volume on this. I think one of these can be the hi-hat and one of these can be the shaker. Get the volume right. If ever you've got your if ever you have something peaking at one side, these buttons here, so this is your panning here. Try and get that volume equaled out so it's coming out of both sides nice and even. Okay, let's get some. That's a bit better. Sounded a bit dry before. So now that we've got everything set up here, it does sound a little bit dry. So what we're going to do is we're going to group all these together. Let's change the color of it. You can right click and let's rename this a bit. SN1, SN2. Okay, let's get this in here. Change the color. Let's go red. And to change all the colors here, highlight your section. Make this red as well. Hold down your shift key and you can highlight all of these. Command G. Let's call this perk because it's percussion. And you can hear it by itself. So now that we've got these in a group here, first thing that we want to do, the volume's okay. Let's set up a little return channel with some reverb in it. Reverb. Oh, it helps if you let's actually put some reverb on it rather than just renaming it reverb. So go here, reverb, let's put a reverb on it, equal high, even though my laptop's screaming at me right now. Bring your dry and wet right the way up. You can have a little bit of spill, that's just going to let a little bit of the dry signal here. As you can see, dry and wet, that's how much what percentage of the signal gets affected by the reverb. So bring the decay time right the way down. We'll go into reverb in a little bit more detail here. I'm just going to set up a little reverb send here with different EQ parameters on it. Send. If you want to as well, you don't just have to pull a standard reverb onto it here. You do have some presets. So if we wanted to make this nice in a nice small room, Let's do a wee storage space. That's got your preset already set up there. Get in a small room. That's a bit too small. Cool. So let's get some processing on the actual drum group itself. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to glue everything together. So we're going to have a look at some of the effects here. So the first thing I normally add is a glue compressor, which we have here. Okay, could do with a bit, so we can come back to that. I'll come back to that later. Right, so glue compressor. So the whole purpose of your glue compressor, as you can probably imagine, is to glue everything together. This has been based off an SSL glue compressor from an SSL desk. Now, me personally, I like to have a lot of transients on it. So by having the attack quite slow, it lets a lot of the transients, so the initial sound of whatever percussion's coming through, it lets that come through, so it gives it a lot more, not volume, it gives it a lot more, trying to think of a word here, makes it snappier basically. So if we take this here and start bringing the threshold down, you really do want to squash the shit out of it, because can you hear the difference? Hear the transients poking through, especially when it comes to the snare and the claps. And the release is the same. Obviously, if you've got a lot of notes playing in there, you want the release to be fairly short and snappy so it can let the next transient come through. Cool, and then we'll look at how much gain we've lost there. So we've lost a couple of dB, so we'll bring that up. The kick is very quiet. Cool. So that's the first thing that we would add into our chain. Second of all, we would fire some saturation in here, just to give it that little bit extra boost. I'm actually running on Live 9.7. I've still to upgrade to Live 10. But one thing that we would do here is we would be adding our drum bus into the equation. But these effects do the exact same thing, but the drum bus will give a little bit of crunch. I have got a plugin that I use as a send just to get the same effect. It's a bit reduction and it gives it a lot of extra boost. It's like it's going through an old radio. It sounds really, I'll let you hear it, it sounds really squashy. But what we're going to do, add a little bit of drive on the saturator. That's not crunchy enough. There we go. Cool, now that we've got that, let's have percussion here. We need a gain stage again, so we'll bring a utility down here. That is thumping now. I'm going to bring the volume down on those shakers, those fast hats, sorry. Cool, so now we've got this on here, the next thing we want to be doing is adding some EQ into the mix. So we want to be rounding off because we want to give some mid-range. So we wanted to, obviously we've EQ'd everything there. We want to be taking all the bottom frequencies off. Then another thing, a good thing to do, is to give a little bit of a boost just in the 1K range. So now where your snares and your hats are your most prominent. So if we take this EQ off. Cool, so now what we want to do is we want to add all these into a group so that we can actually hear that we're not affecting the volume too much. So if we drag all these, if you click on the top part here, you hold shift and then press right or left depending on where you've hovered from. Command G, exact same, adding a group. So let's have a listen to these with and then without. And then with. It generally makes a much nicer sound to the percussion. We could add some more percussion here, but just for the purposes of this lesson, you can add obviously your toms if you wanted to add anything extra, but we're just going to go through the basic house groove just now. Obviously that is a little bit empty at the moment. One more thing I like to add is getting a little bit of parallel compression. So what you can do is your compressor, obviously your glue compressor is compressing all this together, but then what's a really nice effect is by having a compressor absolutely slammed all the way up to the top. That way, as if you were, so what you're going to do is you're going to send part of the signal from your percussion to that send bus, and that's going to give you the most squashed sound ever. So if we'll listen to it by itself. And we'll feed some of the signal in. You hear how squashed it makes everything. Now by sending just a little bit of that signal back to the percussion, it gives that nice squashed sound. And again, it fills everything out. Let's gain stage this. Difference it is, even though there's not too much going on in the actual drums themselves, by using that parallel compression, it's filled everything out. It's filled everything out massively. One more thing I like to do, just because I've not got access to a drum bus, this is a nice little plugin that I managed to find. Where are you? It is by, I can never remember. Where is it? Is it the Greed Smasher? Don't think it is. Flux. We can go into that later on. That gets some really, really nice sharp transients. Where are we? Crush. There we go. So we add this onto the loop here. Nice. You can add one of the presets. I'm okay. I'll get the new one later. Go into presets here. We can just go on modulations and give it a nice drive and vibe. Bring that right the way down. We don't want any LFO. We'll have some of the dry signal coming through, but mostly the wet signal. This is by Tritic. You can get this completely free. If you just Google it, Tritic Crush. It's one of the free VST plugins. Can't get enough of it. So if we send part of the signal from let's send it from the kick, and we'll hear what it does. Let's give it a bit more crush, a bit more oomph. Hear that here if we see what it does. But by adding just a little bit of that signal to that and the percussion, if you were to put some, it gives a little bit of a nice sort of crunchy effect if you wanted to go for that really nice distorted sound. Let's have a listen. Bit too much. This is why you always have your tracks gain staged all the way down to levels like -2, because if you look at this now when we're adding all the sends, look how much space we've got. We're only sitting here at -1. So yeah, that's that's everything, guys. Thank you very much for tuning into this tutorial here. I hope you've managed to learn a lot. If there's any questions, please feel free to drop me a little message, or you can comment in the comment section just here. Give me a little follow, Sesenta on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, etc. And I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in, guys.